Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my returning partner in crime, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, what's going on, dude? How's it going in the North America area?
It's going pretty good, not too bad. Easter weekend here, so just getting together with,
Passover
yeah, exactly,
here.
Passover on your end. So just getting together with some family, celebrating Easter. I mean, personally, I'm Greek Orthodox, so my Easter is until next week, but I have some other, family to celebrate with who celebrate today. So are gonna get some Easter dinner later, maybe some turkey, stuff like that. How about on your end? How's Passover looking?
It's been good, man. It's been interesting to celebrate it here in Israel. It's a little more serious here.
Yeah.
Like everything shuts down. Maybe the biggest holiday. I don't know. I'm not
One
good
of
with
them.
that stuff. What'd you say?
I said one of them for sure.
It's a toppy.
Yeah.
It's an Alexander Ovechkin level. Like it's in the
Holiday.
conversation for the top.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. But holidays have been cool. I've been actually keeping track of the Flyers game. I've been watching them, trying to stay up. It's been a nightmare, but I've just been watching them the next day.
That makes more sense though, considering the time difference. It's
It's
kind of
not
hard.
fun to
Because
watch it that way.
do you know the outcomes already, or are you like giving yourself a chance? Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay.
But like they're losing too. So like
Yeah.
you're gonna lose, and you're just like the Caps won. And I watched that game, dude. This is kind of stupid. I watched that game almost twice. Like, why
Oh
would you watch that
my.
game twice? It's
You put
9-2.
yourself through hell twice,
I
basically.
don't know what it is. I think I was just like, I've been kind of fiending for hockey. I've been listening to a lot of Flyers podcasts, like a lot.
Me too, honestly. But I always do that. So
Yeah, but like I rotate in like video game stuff and then some like other, let's just say miscellaneous, all kinds of stuff in there. And then hockey is always like a big staple. There's always like a
yeah.
couple shows I listen to like a day. But this has been like cutting out every other like topic and just hockey of late. Which is
You're getting
funny
geared up. You're getting
because
geared up for the off season. There you go.
okay. It's funny you say that. It's like this is a miserable time as a fan. But as like a problem solver, like if you are a fan like we are of the
Yeah.
team, and we are fans of the team, like no doubt about that. And we're always gonna have that bias. But if you're a fan of this team and you're like a problem solver by nature, you're gonna like look at this and be like, well, how do I fix this? Like you're gonna obsess over that because you want to win a cup. And I know it's not like we're not fixing it. You and I are not fixing it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like you end up, if you really
But you're
like
thinking about, you want to think about like how is this management group going to go about, putting something in place that gives, the fan base some actual positivity moving forward, because lately there hasn't been much of that, obviously.
it's funny because I actually like labeled what is the name of this episode? And I already have it written, so I'm just gonna say it. And I think it's gonna be really appropriate. Oh, how can the Flyers inspire hope in the fan base? And we've definitely touched on it quite a bit, but I think it should be like kind of our main focus. It should be the in the background of everything that we're talking about, essentially, right? It's the overarching theme here. And been listening to a little bit of Snow the Goalie of late too.
Nice.
And listen back, like a lot of it is to like kind of catch up on Bundy's takes. Because they're undeniable. You can say whether you agree with him or don't agree with him. It is irrelevant of whether you agree with Bundy or not. Because there's no, like, Anthony Sanfilippo worked for the Flyers. That undeniable.
He has connections. He knows what he's talking about.
Undeniable, right? But Chris Therrien's like literally been on the, like, I grew up watching him, and he is so entangled in that community to not take his opinion seriously. Like even if he's not right, it's like you should absolutely hear him out.
Well, he's so close to the situation. He obviously has some sort of inside knowledge, right? So
yeah, I look. The reality is he's probably accurate about majority of what he's saying.
Pretty much.
The only thing is like you just have to give a hint that people you work at a company, right? Like people have opinions of what is wrong with said
Yeah.
company. Sometimes they're like spot on. Sometimes you're like 80% right. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
and again, this isn't just like not a knock on him, but it's just like we're all kind of doing this. And he says it himself, like where he's a fan of this
Yeah.
team now. And I believe him. I believe that Chris Tarian is a fan of this team. And I think we have a problem. Like Houston, we have a problem. Vasili,
Yeah.
we had good topics to talk about today. Let's just real quick, let's give a shout out to the sponsor. I'm going to slow it down for a second here. Shout out to Jim Steaks, 4th and South. Go get yourself a cheesesteak. Like I said, definitely can't eat cheesesteak right now. Passover, no bread either, which I mean, I don't eat bread anyway, but still. It sucks. But go get yourself a cheesesteak. All right. I just want to get right into this. I'll be honest with you. So we'll get to the Sabres loss. What do you think this team really, really needs?
What do I think this team needs?
Not to just turn it around as far as like, hey, we're in like the winning cup. We're above 500. Okay.
You mean like organizationally, what do we need to like have sustained success for multiple years at a time? Almost.
So this is in the article that I'm writing for this episode. I already kind of wrote the article. This is the first time, and I think you haven't been watching the Flyers as long as me, but pretty damn close.
Since like 2006.
Okay. Exactly. So, and that's really because of an age difference more than it is anything, right?
Yeah. Before 2006, I was like 8 years old. So.
Exactly. I mean, and at that point, what do you really even understand of the sport? Watching is cool, you know. But anyway, I remember the Flyers were the worst team in the NHL. I remember that. You were around for that. Simon Gagne was part of that team, I believe. There was a young Mike Richards. There was a young Jeff Carter. Forsberg got traded that year. We finished like real bad. But there wasn't this like
sense of ineptitude.
Like not just, it's not even that. It's like I'm talking about more like fan base vibe. It's like have mercy on us.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It feels like you're not being honest with us. It feels like you're not taking the past seriously. You know, it feels like you've corporatized the team, you know, and it's produced a pretty mediocre to terrible product
for a while.
And mediocre was with Claude Giroux on this team, and now Claude Giroux, who is the most elite talent this team has seen in a very long time, is now gone. Sean Couturier is still an elite talent. He's nice to have. Ellis has lead elements. Hart, you know, we got the whole thing. We can go through that. But this is the first time where like the cupboard is relatively full of good prospects. Like when we at that time, like we had good prospects. They were all at the NHL level. Like we weren't like stocked like this with like a Bobby Brink coming in, and then you know Emil Andre, and then we have a top 5 hit. But there was like no hope.
Yeah,
I want to talk about how to turn that hope around. I'm not saying we know how, but like what would we need? And maybe we're even a little softer, so maybe we have to be a little more critical. You know, what would this city need to see to turn it around? And like, I'll start with the very next step. Like, there's like elements of this, right?
Yeah.
There's the injuries, and I'm sorry, I'm hogging the conversation, and then I want you to talk.
That's okay.
Yeah. So there's the injuries. There's the coaching change, right? There is what's it called? There's the draft. There's free agency. Right. And then there's just overall like progression of young guys internally in the system, which
trades.
And trades. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry. Yeah. I guess I kind of include that in free agency, but you're right. Because there's trades of the draft too. There's trades of free agency, and there's just general trades. There's trades during the season too, which could happen with somebody like JVR potentially, right?
Yeah.
So, and especially if there's an LTIR going on situation with
Alice,
with
that's
Alice,
another factor too.
That's another factor in how we start this season because they'll try to bring something in. Anyway, so where would you start as like, okay, well, let's start with the next one actually because it's chronological. The draft is coming up.
Yeah.
we've talked about this.
Of course.
Go ahead. What do you think your expectation to walk away with that? Like, what would be this is step one to changing the flow of what's happened this year.
Changing the conversation about
changing
the
conversation. This is a national dialogue at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just Flyers.
Yeah, it's a national dialogue because I mean the Flyers have always been a constant moneymaker for the NHL, and as you can see from their attendance lately,
6,000 to 12,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot. So you can be sure that the NHL is wondering, why is one of our biggest money-making teams that brings in a ton of revenue for us not selling out their building? So I'm sure there's going to be talks with NHL ownership, like with Comcast as well, and trying to figure that out. For me, the first step is going to be the draft. And the reason being is you can really sell a fan base on the hope of a top end type of pick that you're going to be making. I mean, obviously, if you won the draft lottery and got a Shane Wright, that's going to be an even bigger boost to that and that piece of the puzzle. But I mean, anywhere in the top five, you can't really go wrong in terms of marketing a top five draft pick as an organization. I mean, that's an easy thing to do. Usually, for me, I wrote an article I put out today, and just a couple hours before this, and the title of the article is "The Flyers Need to Focus on the Future to Find Success." So that's the start for me. I think we really need to start keying into the future, making sure we put players in the right places to succeed. You want to see your young guys taking steps forward, right? Whereas this year we saw them take steps back. And I think that's a big demoralizer for the fan base because let's say you're a casual fan and 2 years ago you watched Ivan Provorov and Travis Sanheim, who've been playing decent this year, right? But could maybe be doing better, let's say, or you watched Travis Konechny, who played better in previous seasons. You're watching now saying, well, what happened to these guys? They were a lot better. So I think that's the main step in getting fans to buy back in is making sure your young guys are in the place to succeed, making sure they're surrounded by enough talent to succeed, the right coaching staff to succeed, all that type of stuff. So that'd be the first one. And then supplementing that talent, with the right coach, to put them in those places, and then adding the right type of veterans or the right type of players, to fill the roster out around them, to help foster that development. That's personally my opinion on it. But how about you, Yariv?
So let's review that for a second. So you're saying draft the top guy and then build, reemphasize the development group around the young guy.
Yeah, because him and then
this is
and then also the rest of the young players, because there's tons of young prospects right now.
Let me add this: you're role playing in this as well. So think of yourself as GM, and again, keep pretty high level because there's a lot to do as GM. But you know what I mean? Like right now, you're coming into the draft. You're like, all right, I'm still gonna do my job regardless, but I know the situation with how people feel about what's going on.
We need to hit on this pick 100%.
Okay. So you're making a top 5 pick.
Yeah,
that's it at the draft.
Making a top 5 pick.
And
I'm not
maybe announcing some hiring before that.
Yeah,
right before the draft.
Some type of coaching, things like that. I mean, that's a part of the plan, obviously.
I like that idea, by the way.
That's always
announcing
fluid.
a hiring like month before the draft or something.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what they did with AV. They did it prior to the draft as well, and he was even at that draft of his first.
They do tend to do that with coaches.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because you want to get a guy that fits the mold of your coach, hopefully. But I mean, if he's a talented player, he's a talented player. He can play under any coach.
That's
yeah. My thing really with the team and just what they need to do for going forward, just to get back to relevancy, get back, to a place where the fans want to tune in, they want to be a part of Philadelphia Flyers hockey, is just making sure that a lot of these young guys have the right, environment to develop in, succeed in, because I don't know if that's something that we've been affording to these younger guys as they've come in the last decade. And there hasn't really been a plan and a gear towards that. And personally, I mean, I wouldn't be against making a trade, like trade away a JVR, make cap space, go after a free agent, make a trade if it makes sense. But I really think the team needs to be smart in the way they operate moving forward, because you don't want to go out and sign veterans, sign free agents to high dollar deals. They're going to block your prospects to develop. That's the first thing. The second problem is, you're going to have to sign guys down the road, some of these younger guys, and you want to have cap flexibility. You want to have roster flexibility. The team is in a mandate to do this aggressive retool, that they've kind of seemed like they're gearing towards. When you're forced into making those moves, sometimes they don't end up being the right ones. especially into trade talk or in a signing. Like if you're another team and you're dealing with a GM or Chuck Fletcher, and you know for a fact, well, he has a mandate from above that they need to compete next year, so he's going to be trying to swing for the fences in trades. I mean, is that something other teams are going to try to take advantage of? So I think I just think the team needs to be patient. Obviously, you want to compete, but I don't think it's something that it needs to be a next year we need to be back in the playoffs. I'm thinking more like take next year, evaluate your young guys, put them in the right position, see what you really have, and then from that point, the year afterwards, going into free agency, things like that, then you make those big kind of splashy moves. But that's just my.
Well, we're jumping ahead. Okay, so yeah. So okay, the way I see it, making this top 5 pick is a big thing. I do think it's a first step to. So agreed with you there. I think I liked what you were saying about like maybe announcing a hiring like right before the draft and not necessarily a head coach. And this is why. Because I think there's a chance that that's going to happen. I think that's the more likely scenario is that when we hire a new head coach, probably come before the draft.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more from like, hey, we hired a new player development person.
Or even overhaul the medical staff. Something like that.
Okay, I think that's interesting too, though. You could announce that at any point. And I think people will be interested in that one. This is more of just like support for the draft. Like, hey, we're also not only have we recognized that we're drafting a future, potential cornerstone player in a top 5 pick, but we're also adding like somebody specifically here to help with that and probably some other key players. We're doing that too, right? Yeah. Like, boom, bam.
Which is smart.
Cool. We're recognizing we need to build elite players through the draft. Boom. We're showing everybody that. Then maybe there is an opportunity there for a trade. If you want to change the tone, if there's a good trade available.
Yeah. Now that's what I mean. You don't want your hand forced, right? That's the thing.
Well, here's the type of player. Again, I don't want to move him, but I do understand why people are saying we can move him. But like this is an opportunity. Like that's where Travis Konechny gets moved. Is at the draft. Now I don't know exactly what for. I don't want to see another Brayden Shen for 2 first-round pick trades for Konechny. If it's to take salary cap off a team or for us to open up cap space because we have inside where they were signing Johnny Gaudreau or something, I can understand that. But realistically, like if you are moving him, you're packaging him for something a little higher end, right?
Yeah, I agree. You kind of put together a package to get somebody that's a little bit more elite, kind of fills the needs in terms of the depth that you might not have in certain positions.
Lindblom and TK for a player. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that could be possible.
For Tarasenko, I don't know if the value there, don't beat me up on that. I'm just throwing out an example of cap.
Yeah, spitballing.
Okay. So let's just say Flyers try to do something like that. I think that's possible. I do think that would help change the tone, but I think it would be a move like that would be marred with, oh man, what that trade, maybe his best years are behind him, blah, blah. I think there'd be a lot of skepticism.
It'd need to be for a younger type guy, like somebody that's around their age almost.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think,
or a couple of years older, I would say.
Sure, like if it's to get Phil Forsberg's rights. Yeah. We have a deal worked out with him, and Nashville gets TK. We get Phil Forsberg. I think that would be like a pretty. Yeah, I think that would be probably enough to get people excited even more. To be like, oh my god, I had a top 5 pick. Though if they get a guy like Cooley, he's already committed. I think to Michigan or Minnesota
for next year. One of them.
One of the two. I can't remember right now. So like there's also anticipation this person, whoever we might take, might not play the first year in the NHL. Yeah. Which I think should be expected to some degree too. It shouldn't be,
not everyone's going to hop right in. Yeah, exactly.
So just looking at that, I'd be like, okay, but I agree with you overall. I would hold back and I would not make a trade like a Travis Konechny. I would potentially move out of Scott Lawton. I would move out of Lindblom. They make $3 million each. I don't want to move them. Again, this
is the real one you want to get rid of.
But that's like the burden. You're not getting much for him if you are.
No.
You're really removing the cap space. You can re-sign your guys and have some flexibility in free agency. That's the reason you need to get rid of them. Having said that, if the Flyers are really going to take a back seat, next year and just be like, yeah, we're not going to be very good. We're just leaving it. We're getting a top 10 pick again next year. We're not adding. We're going to be young, and we're just rolling with it. We're re-signing Martin Jones to 1 year.
I wouldn't be opposed to any of that, honestly. Like,
People,
I don't know if
would
that's
not be. It wouldn't add to what I'm saying, though, right?
No, yeah, for sure. I don't know if that would get people back into the conversation, but there is a sect of the fan base that doesn't want the team to, do this retool, that really want them to kind of take a more measured approach. And I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I want them to make moves that make sense. I don't want them to be forced into it, right?
We are jumping ahead. So so the draft, we kind of agree. Get the top 5 pick. That's enough to get people excited. You got, I think, what is it, 3 third-round picks? So we have
yes
3 third-round picks. Oh no, that's next year. That's not this year.
2023. You're right.
This year we have 1.
Yeah, 1 third-round pick, no seconds.
Yes. So again, that top pick is everything to get excited about. Don't really have much opportunity. Maybe you could trade your second or your first from like 2014, 24. Could move it into this draft. It's possible. I didn't really consider that, but a team might want to do that. A team might consider doing that. But odds are that's it. They're probably going to just draft one guy, then go to the third. Maybe they'll try to move JVR. I wouldn't really
make some sort of trade. Yeah,
I don't expect too much at the draft. I feel like the draft is where you make like a franchise-changing trade, potentially.
It could be, yeah. I'm just hoping, like I said, my perspective is just, if you're a team and, you're in a league like the NHL and you're forced into a corner, a lot of other general managers know that, right? So you don't want to be operating, well, I need to make a move. I need to make a trade. I need to do something.
When you're drafting, to your point, when you're drafting a top 5 pick that day, it's your day.
That's true, yeah.
You're not up against the wall. You're adding a very exciting player that day.
Yeah. I just mean in terms of like the overall like mandate that, we need to be good next year. Like,
no. 100%. But depending on who the Flyers get, I mean, like, let's say they get first overall pick and they get Shane Wright. Let's just say
that changed the conversation.
Then all of a sudden, that deal that you're making, you realize, well, we needed a third line center, but we're kind of locked up there now.
Yeah,
now we have Frost, so we got this elite prospect. We got Frost behind him. We still have Hayes. We got Couturier. He's skating. We got too many wingers right now. We got TK. We got Brink. We got what's his name?
Tippett,
Lindblom, Allison, JVR, Noah Cates. Again, not a lot of those guys are elite. We traded away top guys too. Well, we have Joel Farabee too.
Atkinson.
And Cam Atkinson. Like, we have too many wingers. So it's like, and it's not that we have too many good wingers. We have too many guys who are like, they're good. They're just not
at the same level.
They're the same level. Exactly. Yeah. We have too many middle 6 guys on this team that are, and that's why I bring up Lindblom and Lawton. Now they're like maybe the best 2 middle 6 guys as far as like overall two-way play. I'm not saying you should move either one of them.
But then you add a Cates in there, could be like one of their skill sets is a bit redundant, right?
That's why Lindblom is the guy that kind of screams there, because Lawton can play center, and he's got an A right now.
Wouldn't it be surprising to see like something like that happen?
It's $3 million of cap space. And you wouldn't have to eat anything on him, and you could probably get maybe you can get that second round pick for Oscar.
So to finish off, like you're saying, obviously first or top 5 pick, that's getting the fans engaged, making some sort of hiring before that. Yeah. That's getting them engaged. You want to sign, one major free agent. And then from there, what else?
My next step would be to hire a coach. So first I'd let's say I get Logan Cooley, Matt Savoy. That's what I want, because I want a center. I am, if we get Nemec, if we get Saflovsky, I can't even say their name right. The list has been all over the place. Like Yariv, I can't explain the amount of diversity I've seen in the beyond number 1 at this point in those top picks.
It's all jumbled up.
Yeah. So like, depending on what we get, I can go to a coach and be like, look, I have a team that needs to be brought together. We'll talk about coaching options. I need somebody to unite this team. Like there's talent here, there's some talent here, but they've been underperforming and we've been spiraling, and we need the right guy. We've been searching for the right guy. We've not found that guy, but there's talent here. And I just added a top 5 pick who is exactly what this organization needs, which is a playmaking center. He'll be ready in about a year. So you have a year to get this team about ready. Then I'm going to add an elite center to you. I'm going to have additional cap space open up. JVR will be gone. Blah, 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 blah. I got Bobby Brink here. I can make a move here too. That's how I bring the coach in, right? What do you think? What do you think about that?
I like it. I think it's smart. You want to bring in a coach that is going to be kind of the opposite of, what Alain Vigneault represented, which he was trying in his way, I think, to get the team to buy into a system, but obviously didn't happen. So you want a guy, I think, that's going to be more of a player's coach, more of like the ilk of Mike Yeo, but hopefully with the results, not with, the losing that's been happening since he's taken over. But you want somebody of a similar ilk to him. I think that's good with the younger players or with the prospects, but also, can speak to the veterans as well. Like I said, players coach is what they're looking for, or personally, that would be my opinion. Who are they going to go? Are they going to go for? I'm not too sure.
Let's talk about the options.
Okay, sure. For you, what would you think, or at least in your mind, who are you aiming for?
Cheating, because our list includes essentially a conversation you, Joe, and I were having on Twitter, right? But I think I'm with you and Joe, where I think Jim Montgomery, and I like kind of what I was spitballing to you guys a little bit. Like, we need somebody who's looking for a second chance, but is talented.
Yeah, exactly.
Not somebody who comes in with a huge ego, but somebody who really I don't think John Tortorella is going to work here.
No, I don't think the players
will
mesh.
He's smart. What?
I don't think they'll mesh well. If they didn't mesh with AV, who's hard on
players. They'll mesh for a
players.
year, and then it'll most likely get worse and worse.
Deteriorate or something like that.
Yeah. I what's his name's out there? Dave Tippett's out there too, right?
Interesting.
He was fired.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't necessarily look towards him. Personally,
I don't think it would happen now.
My candidates would be Jim Montgomery, just because, as you said, needs a second chance. It'd be a great story. That's the first thing. But obviously, the main thing would be getting the team back on track. I think he'd be able to do that. He's been an assistant in St. Louis this year. Obviously, they're having a ton of success. He's a part of that. Their special teams are very good. He's a part of that. I believe on the penalty kill. So that's a positive. Another thing too is, when he coached Dallas, they were a playoff team. His record was 60 wins and 43 losses. Not the greatest record, but he had him in playoff position. I just think Montgomery would be good, because he's one of those coaches that seems to tend more to players and adapt to their players, versus somebody that is set in okay, this is the way my team plays no matter what, right? So he seems like somebody that's a bit more adaptable, which is
that's exactly what we need.
Something that you need with young guys. And then the second one, I would go with probably Claude Julien.
Yeah.
But he is probably going to be less adaptable than a Montgomery would be. He's kind of more.
He'd be a defensive coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Defense
but the team needs structure. So, I don't see that would be a bad thing for them, because as you can see in their gameplay, they're all over the place in terms of their coverage. Really.
No, I don't disagree with that, but you got to think there's no way that Yo and Vigneault didn't want structure. I think it's more of we need somebody who can literally
relate to these players. Yeah.
It's probably that, but it's how do they change the mood of how this team feels about itself?
That too, because
some
guys can get down on themselves, which you can see with some play
team. Here. From year to year, we're not. This is what I'm saying. It's this is the worst situation I've seen the Flyers in.
The last two
in my time.
Last 2 seasons are probably the worst seasons, or some of the worst in franchise history.
Yeah, back to back, and there's just and you don't get the sense that anybody is really that. It's trending the opposite way. You're oh, if Couturier and Ryan Ellis come back, we can stop the bleeding. Agreed. Yeah. If we get a top 5 pick, it'll help from optics, and then eventually on the ice, But overall, like I can't say anything to people to get them excited about this team.
Well, yeah, it's almost like a wait and see what happens kind of
Like
scenario, which makes sense. But
when this team was average, I'm sorry
yeah,
to cut you off, but when this team was average and Bobby Brink would have joined, when it was like Wayne Simmons and
a lot more excitement.
oh my god,
surrounding him.
we'd be freaking out over Bobby Brink.
Yeah.
Now okay,
No
cool.
one really cares. People are
Yeah,
like, okay,
Bobby
cool,
Brink,
he looks decent,
yeah.
but it's nothing like, wow, look at this young guy. It's nothing like
Cam York is not.
well,
Cole
remember
Caulfield.
to your point, remember when Gossespierre broke in, the buzz around him, and like I'd be to that type of level, right? Which I wouldn't say it's anywhere near that, really.
No, there's no excitement around this team. Dude, this power play is ranked last in the NHL, isn't it?
Yeah, they're horrible.
And they were already bad. They lost Claude Giroux, and now
got worse.
The worst.
Which is not, I mean, that's
surprising.
Pretty understandable.
Not surprising at all. I do want to add in that Claude Giroux, I believe he has 2 goals, 11 assists, 13 points.
15 now, I think.
Oh, he added 15 points in 13 games. That would have won. Yeah. Oh, he had 3 assists night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he had 15 points in the past 13 games. He's like a plus player. He's winning all their faces.
He's on pace for like over 100 points.
Yeah.
Something like that. If it was an 82 game season with the Panthers, which isn't surprising because you're a good player, and guess what? When you play with Jonathan Huberdeau and Alexander Barkov, who are also very good.
But like he's probably doing his thing, running an offense like the secondary pass or the secondary assist guy, where breaks off of his puck, he finds somebody wide open through like a seam.
Yeah, they're able to another pass.
Yeah, and it's like that's happening like every night. And I talk about this all the time. Like a big reason why production is down is because the team's playing like shit. It's not that these guys don't have the ability to play. Like Travis Konechny, he's still on track for 20 goals this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's essentially, I think the other week we calculated he was like on track to get around 55 points. I'm not sure exactly what he's at now, but I mean, there's 7 games goals left. Yeah, something like that. Let me check it out.
Okay, he can maybe hit 20 goals.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe the season's.
He has 14 goals, 32 assists.
14.
46 points in 72 games.
It's a little worse.
There's 7 games left. I mean, he'll get over 50, I would assume.
So again,
for a season like this, he's also missed some games. So for a season like this, I mean, 50 plus points on this terrible team, it's not the worst. Like on a good team, you add probably 20 more points.
But that's the thing. This is like normally what he's done. Yeah, it's like when this team isn't really good, he puts up about 50 points a season. When they are good, he's like on a 70-point pace.
Yeah. Which we saw that breakout year, the year when they first hired AV, he was leading the team in
scoring. The team was good.
Exactly. But it makes sense, right? If you have good players surrounding you, there's going to be more opportunities to make plays and score goals.
But this is kind of what I was talking about, is like there was an energy change. Like this team, they weren't really that different than the team that was on the ice before. I mean, it was Matt Niskanen, Justin Braun, and Kevin Hayes. And then all of a sudden this team was like legitimately playing top high-end pace hockey, where like at one point people were like, holy shit, like this is like a Stanley Cup competitive team.
Exactly.
And this team on paper that we're looking at now obviously is different, but when we started this year was not worse than that team on paper.
No, not on paper. I honestly just think a lot of it comes to the fact that some of these younger guys, they just seem to be lacking confidence and very down on their game.
And that's what I mean.
A big thing. Like, and that's what I was saying before, with at least on my side, that I want to just make sure you get these guys that you're going to build upon and build around moving forward. Make sure you're getting them in the right place to succeed, putting them in the right opportunities, fostering their growth, fostering their development, because it hasn't been happening. And we've seen regression from the beginning of the season, and now we see it being turned around now that Mike Yo's kind of placing them in a bit, better positions that are more conducive to their skill sets and conducive to the way these players play. But to your point, I mean, just in terms of getting the fan base excited about this team again, realistically, I mean, I don't think there's really any move.
Does Jim Montgomery do it?
Okay, so from my perspective, yes. Jim Montgomery making a nice draft pick.
Let's try to think more general, right? Like,
things
get
like
what
that.
you want, but is it going to change the tone around the team?
Personally, probably not. A lot of people probably don't even know who Jim Montgomery
Yeah.
is, to be quite honest with you. And that's the thing.
I
Like
think
if
I
you
feel
if
that
you
way too.
hired a John Tortorella, that'd be the big name, and that might get
Claude
people
Julien.
excited. Yeah, Claude Julien.
He's got a
That
cup.
might get people a little more excited because the pedigree is there for those coaches. The thing is, I don't know if those are the right coaches, and that's the thing where I go back to, like, are you just making moves for the sake of making moves, or are you making moves with any sort of plan in mind? Which I'm not too sure yet.
Would you
On what
be
that might
upset if Claude Julien was the coach of this team to start the season?
No. I wouldn't be. I'd be fine with Julian personally. I wouldn't. No, like I wouldn't want Tortorella just because I think it would be to what you were
What
saying.
about Rick Tocchet?
It would work at first. Tocchet, I wouldn't mind Tocchet either. I just don't know actually how good of a coach he is.
Same.
But he also coached the Coyotes, so like anybody in that situation is gonna have a shitty coaching record, essentially. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint.
Well, Dave Tippett got more out of that team. That's why I was interested in bringing him here, but it didn't work out in Edmonton.
That'd be interesting too. And that's the thing with Tippett is like they had a ton of young guys in Edmonton. They have Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, and they couldn't really get it to work. So like this team's less talented, arguably. So, I don't know.
I think on that one, like I think the right move is to hire a guy like Jim Montgomery, a guy who's an assistant somewhere that probably should be a head coach, and is like right in that prime space where they're like, they're good, but are they a great coach? Yeah. You know, like potentially, you know, kind of like grabbing a high-end prospect. You need to find a coach like that, like somebody looking for like even a Craig Berube, who we fired, right?
Yeah,
and then went for a second chance with St. Louis. He's been a great coach there.
Well, that's usually what happens, and a lot of the time, you know, with first-time coaches too, like their first outing at it isn't always going to be the most successful, but you live and you learn, right? Personally, for I mean, this exercise we're doing, I really believe that there's no amount of moves this team can make unless they're making like blockbuster trades, bringing in stars left and right, which I mean, objectively with the salary cap isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no amount of moves that can be made this offseason that's going to get the fan base like totally back on board, which is understandable based on the results that have been happening the last couple of years.
That's probably true.
What really needs to happen is the team needs to start off strong next year. Like let's say in the first 20 games, the team is, I don't know, like 15-5 or something, or like or like 13 like
5-2.
Yeah, like 13-7 and like 6 or something along those lines. Like, you know what I mean? Like they need to start off looking good on the ice for more than a 10-game period. That's essentially what needs to happen. And I don't blame fans for thinking that way, because how many times have we looking at this team and the moves they made over an offseason really bought into it, like, oh, look at this, if this all works out it's going to be great, and then it kind of falls apart. So I think it's going to be a wait and see approach. I mean, the team's going to try to make moves to get people back engaged, and some fans are going to be, but the pure casual fan that, I mean, isn't very heavily invested in the Flyers until the team starts performing and has success, they're probably not going to be buying in and watching on a regular basis.
So, okay. So we walk away, let's just say Jim Montgomery. So far we have done nothing in the draft.
Yeah.
But we traded, or we got our top 5 pick. We picked, you know, some interesting draft picks. And then we went out and we signed Jim Montgomery. Oh, and before the draft, we made a hiring for player development.
Yeah. Which isn't bad. That's a lot of things that I would be totally down for the team to do. I think it's a smart move.
So we did those 3. We're still hated. We agree by that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Still hated. There's no excitement there. What do we say after the draft? It was free agency.
Sign a big player, but don't get forced into it. At least that was my perspective. I mean, if you can get Johnny Hockey, that'll bring the fan interest back because he's a hometown guy. But
so let's talk about it real quick. So needs wise, we need a center.
Yeah.
Right. We potentially need a top pairing or top 4 defensemen, depending on if Ryan Ellis can play. Right?
Who knows at this point?
We have to get a backup goaltender, and then we have a bunch of RFAs to sign.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
That's without free agency.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised for backup if Jones actually might come back. But Fedotov, I think, will get a chance to come over. Just I don't know the situation with the whole Russia work visa.
I also think they would not sign Fedotov as the number 2 guy without him playing here first.
AHL time, yeah. I agree.
And they also have Sandstrom, so they have to split between those guys, and they have Ersan. Maybe they're thinking, we don't know what's going on with that war. You just stay in Russia for another year.
Pretty much.
So we have guys. So let's assume we re-sign everybody. All the RFAs are re-signed.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still under the cap. We have a little bit of cap space. I don't know how much it would really be. Let's say it's
million.
It'd be like $3 million.
Yeah, something along those lines. Unless you move a JVR or somebody else.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So we have about $3 million in cap space, and we're making that number up right now. Yeah. We have JVR still on the team, right?
Yeah.
And then we have still probably the need for a top center or a top defenseman.
Pretty much. Either or would be, a big thing, depending on obviously Alice's health, but either or would be good.
So we have no money, so we have to trade
JVR or a combination of like a Lindblom and Konechny, like you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, but trading a Konechny is not necessarily going to make us better.
No, exactly.
We'd have to get a player back.
Which is trading JVR, you could argue, might actually. Better. Yeah.
Well, trading JVR would free up a bunch of cap space where we'd have room to add a player,
which would make you better.
Yes. Now,
or even arguably,
Raquel.
Yeah. Or even arguably, let's say you didn't really sign anybody, but you just got rid of him anyway. Would Wade Allison score about 20 goals? I don't know, but if he could stay healthy. Probably be close. At least, so you're not losing
without Allison. We have plenty of wingers.
Yeah,
JVR's not that good.
You're not losing much on that trade. You're getting rid of $7 million off of your books. It's pretty smart. If they can do that, just moving forward, flexibility wise, to just bring guys up that are younger as well. But
yeah,
the ideal, if you're gonna look to get fans re-engaged, the ideal is get Johnny Gaudreau because he's a hometown guy. People are gonna be going crazy over that. Is that the ultimate need? Probably not. You probably need a center, but that's going to get people most engaged. Him, secondary would be like a Philip Forsberg, and then tertiary to that would be like maybe I don't know. I'm not really a Kadri guy, but maybe like I could see why people would like the way he plays, especially in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So I could see that, or like a Klingberg type. Other than that, though, the free agent market isn't something that has a ton of high-end guys this year, so that's why I'm kind of like hesitant on the fact that if it doesn't make sense and you have to really overpay, next year's class is going to be a bit stronger, and you might have some more opportunities to sign just players that are just as good as guys who are available now at the high end of the free agency pool there.
So let's get this right. So you're leaning towards doing nothing.
I'm leaning towards signing like Gaudreau or a Forsberg.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards signing them, but if it has to be like an overpay of $2 million, like let's say you have to pay Johnny Gaudreau $10 million a year.
What do we give up for JVR?
What do we give for JVR?
To get rid of him.
To get rid of him, you're probably gonna have to give up some sort of draft pick, either a second rounder or a third rounder.
The third from probably one of the thirds.
Maybe two of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. But it's not going to be something that you're going to be like scoffed at. The only thing that I thought was interesting is I listened to Broad Street Hockey, their episode this past week, and they were kind of chatting about how, Arizona owes us one if you traded him to Arizona, hypothetically, because, we gave a second round pick to them in the Ghost trade, and they didn't give us anything back. So, GMs keep track of things like that. So maybe they do us a solid there.
I like the idea. So at this point, the goal is, so let's summarize: draft a top pair guy, new coach, add a player development thing, person, and then sign one big name free agent, remove JVR.
Pretty much. And that's basically all you can really do with the situation that they're in. And that's really contingent on moving JVR, which who knows if that can actually happen.
Right. So let's say it doesn't happen, we just roll into next season with JVR.
Well, yeah, and then you probably trade him at the draft, or at the deadline. Sell him.
Assuming that we don't make it.
You know what? You'd probably get a decent amount then on an expiring deal, to be fair. Like maybe a late first, I could see it.
It's crazy. He has 20 goals this year.
He does, and he'll probably get 20 next year too somehow. So
it's just crazy. It's crazy. He's like not a bad player.
He's consistent. It's just he's not going to move the needle where this team needs it to be moved.
He's paid double. Like I said, he's paid double of what.
Well, like we were saying in previous weeks, if he's on a cup contender on a third line, and he's a guy that's power play specialist, he chips some goals in, he'd be fine. But it's just the team needs more high-end talent than he can bring at this point.
He is the $3 million player getting paid $7 million. That's essentially the problem.
Basically, but so that's the plan really for me. Bring a free agent in if you can. My only holdback is if you're signing Forsberg or Gaudreau 10 million plus, I wouldn't sign them because I just think it's going to handicap you so much salary cap wise going down the line that if you sign them for 10 million now, sure you're going to up the value of the team. You're going to get fans re-engaged. The team will be better, but 3-4 years down the line, your flexibility is going to be toast.
Yeah.
And that's going to be really when you're going to be competing and you're going to be needing to add those pieces to really round the team out. At least that's the hope, right? A couple of years from now, you're back really into the thick of things, one of the top 10 teams in the league. So that would be the only hesitancy there, unless you can move out even further salary. The only way it really makes sense and it's like a home run, let's sign these guys, is if, let's say you got rid of JVR and then you could get a Lindblom out as well, or Lawton out as well, and then you free up more like 10 million, and then you really free up the full cap space.
I look at the plan that we laid out, and I feel like it's not going to get people excited.
No, probably not. But that's what goes back to my point. Like until they start to actually perform well on the ice, that's what's going to get people engaged, and that makes sense because you don't want to buy into something that's fool's gold, right?
The only way to make camp exciting this year is if there's a top 5 pick there, right? It's a big thing in the drawing excitement is if like people go to dev camp and they see, because like the one thing that's not included in any of these projections and fairly not included because you have no freaking idea if this is going to happen, but any one of these Flyers prospects could take a jump and all of a sudden
break out. Yeah.
We don't even talk about that anymore because things have been so bad that like it's
nobody
not
wants
even
to hear it.
It's not even assumed, but it used to be assumed that every year one guy would make a jump.
Yeah,
it'd be like, oh, this is the year that freaking Farabee. Next year's the year Farabee is going to break out.
That's personally my opinion. We've talked about that. I don't know about 40 goals, but I mean, we talked about it last week.
How many 40 goal scorers are there?
I mean, he already has Farabee had 17 goals this year, and he missed a ton of games. So he'd probably be around 30 if he didn't, most likely. So I mean that'd be my perspective. I just think that with the young guys, that those are the players that really need to key in on moving forward, because that's what's going to bring the team out of this, the younger players that they have. So they just need to get them in an environment that is fostering their growth, fostering their development, putting them in the places to succeed, which you can argue the last couple of years with the way, Vino was playing some of these younger players, it wasn't really conducive to that. And even Yo's had some puzzling stuff where it makes me wonder if Lindblom will be an odd man out because he's been on the fourth line a couple games recently.
No, I think tonight's game or this afternoon's game, even though I'm way ahead of you in time, I believe Lindblom's playing the second line.
Yeah. Even last night they said they were moving him and Cates. They were swapping them.
I think they really want to see what they have in Cates. I mean, he looked pretty good, man.
He looks like
the guy can steal the puck. The guy can play.
He has
aggressive.
a motor, man. Well, I was tweeting this and saying every time Noah Cates on the ice, he does something noticeable, and he's been great. That's a very important thing because I mean that's what you want. If you see a player making noticeable plays constantly when they're on the ice, that means they're contributing in a positive way, right? So I think
you might have to look at moving Oscar Lindblom and clearing up some cap space. If Ryan Ellis is on LTIR, I'm not sure all the rules around that. I know you have to start off cap compliant, but maybe you can figure out a way to bring a big name guy in and take advantage of that. But you got to do something.
Something we didn't mention. I'm sorry to interrupt, but something we didn't mention that I think would get the fan base really engaged is if they totally fired the whole front office and just cleaned house, which obviously isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they're already so close to the draft.
If they fired Fletcher, that would get people excited.
It would be. But that's something
oh my God, let's see what they can do.
That's something I don't think is anywhere near close at this point. It's going to be more of if the next season the team starts off just as bad as this year, then I think by Christmas, we've talked about it that he'll
They
likely
have
be
no
gone.
choice. They have no choice.
Exactly.
They can't.
Professional
They can't allow this.
sports. Professional sports. It's a results-based business.
I think
so.
he would be expecting it. And
Yeah.
even there's some highlights. Let's talk about these two statistics you brought up as we move forward here. The Kevin Hayes, he has 18 points in the last 21 games. And then this was an interesting one, and correct me if I'm wrong. The Farabee one is he has 37 goals over the past 2 seasons, 32 of which are at even strength. That's more than Line, Kreider, and Panarin.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I just thought to bring those up. They were very interesting to me, especially from the Farabee perspective, because we were talking about this off air before we recorded that. I mean, you see all those even strength goals. Imagine if the team actually had a decent power play, how much would be tacked on.
I mean, dude, why do you think Giroux's numbers are so low here?
Exactly, because the power play is garbage.
Yeah.
And then another thing to speak to that Hayes stat is he not only has 18 points in 21 games, but his 18 points in those 20 games are first among the team in the last 21 games. 16 even strength points out of the 18, which is also first. 13 assists, which is also first. 5 goals, tied for second. 55 shots, first. 19 minutes per game, which is also first among forwards for the last 21 games.
They don't really have a choice.
No, they don't have a choice in terms of playing.
No, it's very good.
But it's a positive moving forward, just for the fact that the guy's coming off 3 different
surgeries,
hernia surgeries. So just getting him back to that level, in terms of the season where he first signed here, his first season here, he looks like the same player to me. That's a big thing moving forward because their penalty kill's been bad, and he's a great penalty killer, and they're going to need him there going into next year, and they just need a solid output from him down the middle. And I think that's what they really need in general is their center ice position has been ravaged, and you can tell in games, right, when you don't have that strong center ice presence, teams can really take advantage of you in the defensive zone, and it's really hard for you to break the puck out. And then those are both two things that are very true of this Flyers team. They can't break the puck out of their own zone because they don't have the right center support there, supporting their defense a lot of the time. And they don't have the offensive punch other than really, Hayes down the middle to really scare teams. And getting Couturier back and a healthy Hayes, and then a potential, top 5 center prospect in this draft will go a long way. And then maybe even a free agent center possibly as well would go a long way. So I think the center position is a really important thing if you're going to compete in this league.
Yeah. And if you can't get a center, then you're going to have to move Farabee to center. And
I'm not against that. I don't think they really want to do that to him.
I don't think they want to do that either. But I'm not against it either because I think it could work. But at the same time, the left side becomes weak without Joel Farabee on it.
Yeah,
too,
for sure.
Especially if you get rid of JVR, you get rid of Farabee, and then all of a sudden you have Lindblom.
You're subtracting a lot, and then you're like, what are we doing on left wing now?
Lindblom and Cates.
It's almost like filling one hole, and then you just sprung another leak.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right now, it looks like the 4 centers for next year. I guess you could include Brown as a number 5 here, but it's going to be Couturier, Hayes, Frost, and Lawton.
Yeah, exactly.
Lazinski and Patrick.
They'll have to win that. They'll have to win out their spots in camp. There's going to be a lot of competition for the 4th line, I would say.
But that's the thing. I don't really want Scott Lawton to be 3rd line center next year. I want him to be on the 4th line and have the best 4th line in the NHL.
Well, that's how you know you have a good team. If Scott Lawton's on your 4th line, then the depth is there because he's forced to be there because everyone else above him is better.
Do you trade Cam Atkinson
trade him for cap relief potentially?
No, for a veteran who's better.
I mean, if you can find it, I just don't know if they're going to be able to find that trade somewhere. But it depends what's going to be on the market. You have to know who it would be for. Do you have any ideas?
So, I'm just throwing out a Tarasenko for Atkinson thing in a situation where maybe they have to free up some cap space.
Because he's a lot more money.
To re-sign somebody. It's a little bit more money. It's $2 million. Is there another situation like that? I don't know.
Anything's possible.
Mark Scheifele.
Well, I was going to bring that up. I think if you're looking for Scheifele,
would you trade TK for Scheifele?
Yeah, I would, 100%. Because you need a center, and he's arguably a top line centerman.
So it's okay. The reason I asked that because I remember people are pretty down on him right now, and I was like,
Scheifele?
That's a guy I would trade TK for.
I would trade for Scheifele. He's not too old. I mean, there's been rumors that
29.
he's a locker room cancer, this and that. I don't buy into
I
any
have
of
such a
that.
hard time believing that.
Yeah, I don't buy
Dude,
into that. They're just a bad team, and what happens when you have a bad team? Everything's wrong, right? So,
dude, I've been hearing bad stuff about Blake Wheeler, and for a while he was
yeah.
like, Blake Wheeler is what a hockey player should be, and now we're like, Blake Wheeler is a
I don't
problem.
know. I don't buy into that stuff. It's just a culmination of a team being bad and a fan base has too much time on their hands. They need to pinpoint somebody,
Yeah.
right? Just like we
Well,
do here.
so
Um,
they do have Dubois,
yeah.
who's done
Back
well
to
there.
back to the Tarasenko thing. I mean,
Oh,
he has
sure.
what? He has 73 points in 68 games, so over a point a game. That's a pretty huge bounce
He's
back
definitely
for him.
outplaying Atkinson. You'd have to add,
Yeah, so that's what I mean. If you're gonna trade
or
for
their
him,
cap relief,
for the cap relief. I mean,
kind of.
I could see like an Atkinson, and then that 2024 first, and then another pick, like a fourth or something. Maybe it's possible.
I don't know. I
But
was just thinking a scenario of like, is
that would
there an?
make sense. It would make sense. I mean,
It makes a good amount of money.
Shifley makes more sense because then you kill your center need by doing that. Like swapping a winger for winger, Atkinson, Tarasenko,
But why would they
better
make that?
player.
One, I don't really understand why they would trade Shifley. I understand people.
Well, reason being, at least from what I've seen, coming out of like Winnipeg media in Canada, just what I've read, what I've kind of looked into, is that they're kind of looking to turn the page because they haven't won with that core, so they're trying to make some shakeups and change the energy. So like, there's a belief that one of Wheeler, Shifley will be gone. I think it would be Shifley over Wheeler because I believe he has less remaining years on his contract. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to search it up. But this year he still has 70 points in 67 games. So like he's still playing a game. So you're gonna have to give up. I know they do want a young defenseman back for Shifley. So I mean, it'd probably have to be like a Konechny and like a Zamula type. And I don't even know if that would get it done.
Yeah,
But
I don't think so.
if you're looking to trade for him, there's going to be other teams involved there for a Mark Scheifele. So you're gonna have to pay a high price. So it'll be interesting. I mean, for the Flyers' sake, based around their depth and just like their prospect pool, I think they don't want to really remove too much from that. So if you could somehow, I mean, make your center signing in free agency, that's probably the best bet. But I mean, Scheifele is interesting to me, and I really think that would be a good move to make. Once again, if we're going back to moving the needle for the fan base, I don't know if Scheifele is one of those guys that'll do that, but it's gonna get people talking for sure because that'd be a huge blockbuster trade. So
Yeah.
because there'll be multiple pieces there, right?
Right now, it feels like I think you might be right. Like just going back to the beginning of what you said, like I look at like the New York Rangers, and I think Lafreniere actually had, I think he's got 17 goals on the year, so his play has been improving.
Good. Yeah.
But I think a lot of like the Rangers themselves, like who would have thought Chris Kreider would be a 50 goal scorer? Especially a few years ago. Zabinajad has been questioned as a top line center. He's obviously very talented. You don't look at that team on paper and go, like Panarin is a given. You don't look at that team on paper and go like, holy shit, they're at the top of the NHL.
No.
But they are at the top of the NHL because
think about the way they did their kind of rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it.
They didn't wipe out everything.
No, and they kind of did what we're talking about. They signed that one big guy, which is Panarin. They had the money to do it. And then from there, they just said, you know what? We have a lot of young guys. We got some high picks. Let's foster them into the team. Let's give them the room to grow, give them the room to develop. And look what it's all, kind of all meshed into. And then they also had pieces on the back end, like an Adam Fox that they reintegrated in, a Kyondre.
Also hired a good coach.
Yeah, hired a good coach. I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. Like, you need to give the young guys a chance. You need to give them the right position, the right ice time, the right opportunities to succeed and develop. And that's what I mean with Fletcher and why I'm kind of concerned going into the offseason personally. And the reason is because there seems to be this mandate, well, we need to get into the playoffs. We need to do this. We need to do that. Did the Rangers make the playoffs last season? No. They didn't make it 2 years. I think this is the first year in 5 years they're going to be back in. So it wasn't overnight, and sometimes you can't rush these things, right? And rushing them will further worsen the problem because you're getting forced into, well, we need to make a move. We need to do this, and teams will take advantage of that because GMs aren't stupid. So that's the thing.
So I think those are great points. So like, let's say we're going into next year. we're taking the conservative approach. We're ignoring the fan base. They're angry, but we're saying, hey, we gotta give it one more year. Just be mediocre. Just is what it is.
And then think about next draft. You get a
Yeah.
Connor Bedard somehow, or something along those lines.
We haven't been able to get rid of JVR, so we have him for the year, and we're kind of just like, okay, we're not. No point to buy him out because we're not adding him much anyway. So we're just gonna sit here and be mediocre. Now, how mediocre are we gonna be with what we talked about? If it's a top 3 pick, top 5 pick, or whatever, a couple of the guys are already committed. Some of them might be NHL ready. I don't know, but let's say they're not part of next year's plan at this point.
Team will probably
it's hard to predict, right? You go in next year, you got Couturier as your number 1 center, you got probably Owen Tippett as your top right winger. At the way things are going right now, you have Travis Konechny up there, who's also top guy. You have Atkinson as a top guy. Maybe you move Konechny to the left wing. Maybe you move Tippett to the left wing. I don't fucking know. You got Farabee up there.
Something has to happen with the wingers anyway.
Right. You got a Hayes. Yeah, a mix of Cates and Lawton.
They'll be decent. They won't be one of the worst in the league, but they're not going to be like terrible.
Yeah, and let's say Ryan Ellis can play. Let's just say optimistically. We have no idea at this point. But let's say they're going in next year with the young guys they're putting on the ice now and the healthy veterans, right? And let's include Jones in that. Yeah. Where is this team at in your mind in the standing? With a new coach, with Jim Montgomery.
With a new coach, and then everybody's healthy. Like Ellis is playing.
Everybody's healthy, a year older.
I mean, probably
got some prospects in the group.
6 to 10, if you look at the Eastern Conference, if we're ranking it that way, probably 6 in the conference to 10.
So,
decent.
10 decent. Wins more than what we have done.
Something along those lines. Or, I mean, they're in the playoff mix. They would be on the bubble, personally. With that healthy lineup back. And then you have a new coach, and you have a bunch of younger guys with another year under their belt, like a Frost, like a Farabee. And who's to say one of those guys don't break out? And that's the optimistic thing. And that's why I feel like, if you did add one of those big free agents somehow, let's say, and you didn't run it back completely, you could be even better than that, really, and be a playoff team. But it's just you don't want to get forced into moves that just don't make sense, past a couple of years from now, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, because you're gonna have young guys you're gonna need to sign. If you draft that top 5 pick and he turns out to be a star, you're gonna need $8-10 million in 3 years from now to re-sign him or something along those lines if he breaks out, right? You don't know to the effect that's a player like that might break out in a couple of years. So there's just certain things you have to watch out. And then let's say, another guy you picked, or Bobby Brink becomes a star, you're gonna have to sign him. So you don't want to commit too much money for the win now, this year, next year, when there's still a lot of guys that who knows what they could be, who knows what type of money we're going to need to allocate. That's the tough thing with the salary cap. You always have to be looking ahead, right? So it's interesting. I personally don't know. What do you think? If they kind of run it back with the same team, everybody's healthy, what's your perspective on it?
I think that Chuck Fletcher will lose his job by the end of that.
Most likely, yeah.
If we go with what we have said, if the coach doesn't turn everything around, which is possible, then Chuck Fletcher will be fired.
Look at Daryl Sutter in Calgary. They didn't change much.
It absolutely can happen, and it can change a lot in your organization. But I feel like maybe Chuck Fletcher has no choice but to make one move.
Big splashy move, yeah. I see it.
Unless Ryan Ellis, he's not just fucking with us, and he's Ryan Ellis is going to be back next year. Yeah. And when I get Ryan Ellis and Couturier in there, it's not going to make us Stanley Cup contender. But it'll make the team better. It'll buy me a year, right? Yeah. Because I'll be hey, look, we've improved. We're healthier now. I added young guys. We have a top 5 pick coming next year. Oh, I have 2 first-round picks the following year. I have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds the following year. He has.
We have another year. We have another year of evaluation with these young guys to see where we want to go with them. And there's a lot.
Getting $7 million of cap space. JVR is finally leaving. Or whatever, we're drafting in the middle of the pack again. We're getting a top 10 pick. I can't do it in a year, but I can do it in 2. And now I have some cap space. Now I can go out and sign that guy, to add. That's an $8 million player. I also have a bunch of younger guys in there. I have some older guys who are leaving.
Yeah, because that's my fear is that you spend this offseason making these big trades, making big UFA
What?
signings that are long-term dollar signings, and then they don't move the needle and you're just as bad,
So
right?
so
So
let's fantasize a little bit. What who is available around the NHL that we would think would be a perfect fit for where we are in our rebuilding process, right?
yeah,
And they're relatively young,
that
and
may be on the move, like moving forward. You think, or
potentially gettable. So, like, obviously, like we mentioned, Mark Scheifele, who's probably a little bit
that would be
older.
top of the list,
That
honestly.
that's even like a little bit older than what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's like, that's a good. I would be very happy with him. But like, I was thinking somebody even like kind of like a fantasy a little bit of who would you want to add to this team, like. And Elias Pettersson is probably
that
completely
would be
unlikely.
that
But
would be amazing. But yeah,
but
somebody
like,
like that ilk.
is there anybody available out there who is potentially available, and for some reason that team is stupid enough to move on
I mean,
from like,
Alex DeBrincat of Chicago. There's rumors on that.
yeah,
Which I mean,
Clayton
that's not a
Keller.
center. Clayton Keller is very interesting because he's a point a game, and I mean, Arizona is apparently willing to trade anybody. So that would be very interesting to me. He's very young. He's about a point a game this
That
year.
would
So,
be a guy I think you could get people excited about.
oh, 100%. And he's very flashy too on the ice and just the way
Yes.
he plays. So, like, for the casual fan, that's something they'd love to watch. I mean, if the Leafs lose again, I'm sure a Marner or Nylander will be on the move.
I
So
honestly, dude, I've been thinking about that lately. I think there's like such a slim chance of that happening. This is the best Leafs team I've ever seen.
oh, they've been really good.
You're
Yeah, they've been
not
really
breaking
good.
them up. They're going
The
again and again
only
and again
the
every year.
only thing is just like the media here and just the fan base and the pressure. It's fucking crazy. I'd
It would
only
be a
be
mistake.
yeah,
I believe.
it would be a terrible mistake. It's just like they haven't won a round since 2004, so something's gonna have to happen. If it's not one of them being gone, they're gonna have to make some sort of move
Yeah.
that placates the fan base or does something. It's either move one of them or the whole front office is fired. Which I mean that could happen because you haven't won a round in forever, and it's professional sports. So if the results aren't there, usually as a manager, you're not there either. So even though
Yeah.
Dubas has done a great job, but something like that. I mean, so like you're saying, a Pedersen. I mean, even Brock Besser. I don't think he'd move the needle as much, but he'd be somebody I'm interested in because I think he has 40 goal potential, just with his shot. A Pedersen that's probably unrealistic. A Marner, Nylander, maybe. I mean, out of Calgary, if they lose again early, like they haven't had much success, and their team's been together for a while. So I mean, obviously you have Gaudreau, you could sign as a free agent. But in terms of training, I know Monahan. He's not as young, but he looks like to be on the outs there. He's playing in a fourth line role this season. He's having a surgery. They shut
He's
him
paid a
down for
lot
the
of money
year.
though.
He's paid a lot of money. Yeah, that's the thing. So realistically, if you were to acquire him, they'd probably have to eat cap. So you get him at a reduced price. Maybe he bounces back for you. But that's another guy that isn't going to be like a flashy type of move. It's more going to be like, well, we're betting that he's going to be a lot better back into a more elevated role on our team. I mean, if Detroit's looking to trade a Dylan Larkin, which they probably aren't.
That's the name that you can think. That's exactly what the Flyers need, and
Yeah,
we're not getting it from Detroit.
no, probably not. So that's the thing that would be up. I mean, another one maybe from Chicago. I don't know if they've soured on a Kirby Doc, but I mean, there's talent there.
Oh, I like that one.
There's talent there, but I just don't know if they've soured on him because look, what's the point of souring on a guy your team shit anyway? You might as well just give him a chance to
Well,
bounce
why are
back.
they souring on Alex DeBrincat? Not souring, but why do they even consider trading him?
I don't know. It seems like a mess over there, but that's just stuff I heard around the trade deadline, just like through Twitter, stuff like that. They would be thinking about it.
Is he injured? Kirby
No,
Doc?
I don't believe so, but he could be. I haven't really kept track.
I don't see him.
Possible.
Oh, here he is. I'm an idiot.
He's had a bad season though. He hasn't been very good.
Well, that's why I would want to trade for him. Do you?
Yeah, exactly. You get him at a reduced price due to that.
He's never done that well in 152 NHL games,
No.
and he has 19 goals and 40 assists. So like,
Yeah, he's never done that
minus
well.
22.
But also, I mean, he broke his wrist last year and was out like the entire year. So it's almost like a Morgan Frost situation.
It's actually like a Nolan Patrick situation.
That too. Yeah, that too. It's it's a lot closer to that in terms of like the high draft pedigree,
Yeah.
doing really well at the World Juniors, and then not really having it translate.
Yeah. Um, man, I'd love to trade for a Braden Point before he became Braden Point.
Something like that.
Flyers need to get lucky, dude.
Pretty much. You need to hope that Bobby Brink is something like that. Basically, you're diamond in the rough.
What about Vegas? Did they have anything that because they got
they have cap troubles.
They have cap troubles next year too, right?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do.
Dadonov was a guy they were trying to move.
Riley Smith apparently, which he'd be a nice player to add, but he isn't like he isn't a focal point of a team at this point or anything like that.
William Karlsson, he's signed forever.
He's a nice 3C. I don't know what he's getting paid, but
he is getting paid just under $6 million.
I mean, if you got him in here
for 6 years,
if you got him in here and you had him behind Couturier, Hayes, and then you add Karlsson, that's probably like in terms of a defensive centerman, that's a really great 1, 2, 3 punch.
It's a big contract though.
Oh, it is, yeah. But I mean, at this point, they got to be creative. They're that's what I mean. Like Fletcher's going to be looking at everything and anything, and he's going to be trying to swing for some sort of fences. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's the most thing that I'm kind of worried about and concerned.
I think you let Vegas destroy themselves.
Yeah,
try to catch them in a try to grab Shea Theodore from them
in a bad situation. Yeah, if they let him go, that'd
desperate.
be a terrible move. He's
one of the best defensemen. He's the youngest guy of the bunch. Obviously, they'd probably try to move one of their veterans.
Probably try to move Pietrangelo before.
No.
Never know.
But
man.
I do think they would try to move Alec Martinez.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
Braden
who knows?
McNabb.
I don't know. I don't know with Vegas because they'll pick you up and then just trade you next year. Like they seem not to give a fuck in terms of that.
Well, that's why I want to see if there's like they're not trading Mark Stone, but he's a guy I would love to get.
No, you never know.
Yeah, well,
never know what's gonna happen.
At this point, I have no fucking idea.
Well, that's the only thing that it's hard to really project in just of who they could target just around the league because it's so early and there's always guys that come up as being available that you never thought were going to be in NHL offseason. So like we'll have to wait till around the draft to really like look into it, I think. And at least be like closer to like, okay, this guy for sure is available because you know it's been put out there into the media, things like that. But there'll be guys that you never thought were ever going to get traded that probably will be on the move. That's just always how it is, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot that needs to happen. This draft is going to be important, and each one of these steps. The reason I want to do this is like all these steps have to be done right for perfectly, and then the team has to perform on the ice. And if they perform, even if they don't perfect off season, but the team plays better, the team starts off in top 3 in the division. It doesn't seem like it's a fluke.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
I would change everything overnight. So
that's what it's going to take. It's really the results.
The results. If they can pull off a big deal, I think we're all open to it. Just don't give up. Just don't lose another trade.
But that's what I'm concerned about because, I mean, the rest of the league knows, like Dave Scott said, well, we're going to be competitive next year. You think other GMs aren't keyed in on that? So, like, if you're chasing trades and chasing moves, like,
I don't listen too much to that press conference because I'm just looking at what they're doing. They're not doing anything that's telling me they're not rebuilding on the fly.
Well, that's what they should do. I mean, think about it. Think about all the moves they need to make realistically for them to be like a Stanley Cup contender next season, maybe for like only a couple
seasons. It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. So why are you going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole? Work with what you have. See what the young guys can develop into.
It starts with the top 5 pick. That's really where it starts.
Well, we've been saying this for months, Yariv, that like they need to just focus on the younger guys, getting them in the right place to succeed, and then the rest will fall into place. And I think you agree with that.
Yeah. And again, Like maybe Tyson Forrester will break out next year, and all of a sudden
we didn't even mention him.
Yeah,
That's
we
another
barely
winger.
mentioned Allison.
That's another winger in the mix. So.
Isaac Ratcliffe we didn't mention.
Yeah, I mean, there's depth there. Like
we
if
just
they
don't know
want
what
to
to
make
do with it all.
yeah, if they want to make a big, swing for the fences type trade where a star guy, like let's say Calgary loses in the first round, and they're saying, well, you know what, we tried with this core for 6-7 years, it hasn't worked. We're gonna let Johnny Hockey walk. We're gonna trade Matthew Tkachuk. Like the Flyers would need to be all in on that, like for Tkachuk or like something along those lines.
Tkachuk, I would be all in on him. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that package would be centered around TK and add.
And then you probably have to add in maybe a Forrester or something like that.
Yeah, maybe Tyson Forrester, TK, and first in 2020, whatever. And then they give us like the Chuck in a second.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
Yeah, I could see something.
Or like a Scheifele, you could go like TK, first round pick, decent prospect, something along those lines.
Man,
they're gonna have to do something.
Yeah, they have to do something. All right, let's wrap.
As you can see from this episode, we try to lay it out of what they could do in all the different avenues.
It's just it's too early at this point, and the pick matters. I will say this, and I'll just end. I do think Owen Tippett has been really awesome.
Oh yeah,
and we need a version of him as center.
I think he's gonna break out. Honestly, I don't know about next season, but at some point soon.
It reminds me of the Jake Voracek situation when we traded for him. Yeah. Where he was a guy who was top guy, has a lot of talent, has potential to be a top line dude, didn't have the right opportunity, also was on like the earlier part of 24, and then he starts putting it together. I don't know if he'll put up Jake Voracek like numbers, but that would be awesome if all of a sudden we had a 40-40 guy.
Yeah. Well, I think he has potential. Just, I mean, if you watch his wrist shot, he can beat goalies clean from far out.
He's been my favorite. He's been by far my favorite newcomer of the year.
Yeah, he's been my favorite new player to key in on game in, game out, just shift to shift.
By far.
He's making a lot happen out there, especially offensively. I mean, the defensive game isn't always there, but that's not why you acquired him to be a defensive guy. Like you acquired to score goals for you.
He's an impact, and he's still young. And honestly, I'm really interested to see how he develops.
Him and Couturier, I think, would be a good combo. Just the way Couturier can open up space, I'd like to see it.
I totally could see it. And then you could see Atkinson playing with Hayes next year.
Yeah.
TK probably in the mix there. Farabee probably, second or first line. It's so early. All I know is that there's work that needs to be done here to change the tone of this team.
And
I think the coach and the draft is a huge start to that, because Mike Yeo cannot come back. It's
the coach in the draft for sure, and then the coach in the draft for sure, and then just what's Fletcher going to do? Is there a calculated approach? Is there a calculated plan that's getting put into place? Because I mean, it's too early, obviously, for us to really know.
We won't find out for a little bit,
but I hope there is one, because at this point, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Do you think Fletcher has a plan in place? Do you think there's like there's something they're leaning towards versus another thing or something?
I think that they are reshaping their plan that they had at the beginning of the year, and I think that's why it looks disorganized, because things did not go the way they anticipated.
Well, yeah, so I think have to reset at that point.
I think from what the moves that I've seen, the plan is quick retool, gain as many assets as I can. If I can do something this offseason, I will. If not, the next season's my off season, and that's my window to be competitive again. Do I know if that's going to materialize into a Stanley Cup winning team? I don't know, but at the bottom of the league is a bad place to be for very long.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to get out of it. They got to change a lot of attitudes here. And I would not be upset if Comcast fired majority of the people running the Flyers.
Neither would I, because think about the last decade. Has there been much success under the majority of people?
Honestly, in my opinion, I think it's probably the newer people that have been hired since Comcast became. I think that's probably where a lot of the problems lie. And I work for Comcast, so
I agree.
If they hired the type of people that I know exist at Comcast, you're not going anywhere.
You're fostering a bad work environment in general.
That I'll be honest with you, Comcast is the place where I've seen the most amount of overpaid, useless senior level people
that don't do a lot. Yeah.
Not only that, they're just also not very talented. having said that, I also worked with like the most talented people at Comcast. So they had both. But I've never seen so many people without talent be there. So that they don't have talent.
That's just who you hope.
It's a monster of a company.
That's just who you hope isn't running the Flyers. The less talented people, the less talented.
I imagine they're smart people. I just don't know if they're the right people for the job. It's hard for me to call these people idiots, but at the same time, like they've done things with the organization where I'm like, well,
you're scratching your head and wondering how.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, and not just Chuck Fletcher.
No.
All right, let's wrap it up. Anything you want to tell people that's coming out?
Yeah, so I actually had a article published this morning. It was called "The Flyers Need to Focus on the Future to Find Success," which we kind of dived into that this episode. So it was a great follow up in terms of just writing that out and getting it out there this morning. So everybody check that out. It kind of dives into just looking at the future and the fact the Flyers need to put the right pieces in place to succeed moving forward and really focus on developing their younger guys. And that's what I keyed into within the article. So thanks everybody for checking it out, and just thanks for supporting us and checking out all the rest of the content on the website as well, because all our writers are going in and working their hardest to get you guys the best Flyers coverage.
Well said.
And also I'll be at the game Tuesday.
Oh yeah, which is fucking awesome. You deserve that, by the way. But he's going to be at the game in Toronto. That's what he's trying to say.
First away game that Flyers
Nitty Gritty is international, baby.
Exactly. Let's go.
Well, congratulations, man, and you deserve it. And have a blast. And I'm sure you'll represent the brand.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Yourself.
It's going to be fun, and can't thank you
Make
and
Connections
Jamie.
Network.
Oh yeah, that's the plan, and can't thank you and Jamie enough for the opportunity, because without you guys, I wouldn't be in this position. So thanks.
So
thanks,
fucking
brother.
cool. Yeah, absolutely, awesome. Dude. And it's not even a question. I'm happy you're going. I think it's awesome. Great opportunity, and probably the beginning of many, honestly. All right, let's wrap it up here. We did go an hour and a half, so not too bad considering the state.
Talk about.
We didn't even really talk about the Flyers 4-3 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. The Flyers will be playing the Buffalo Sabres today as we record this.
Yeah.
For me, I actually can watch this one. It's at midnight, so I should be able to stay up.
I mean, quick recap is the Flyers had a lead and then they blew the lead. So if you've been watching this season, you're pretty used to it at this point.
I did watch the last game, and yeah, it's honestly so upsetting that they can make the Buffalo Sabres look like an all-star team.
It's formulaic at this point. Flyers get a lead, they blow the lead.
But if you do look at this team on paper, you're like, it's a shell of how it started in the season.
Oh yeah,
and that's what I mean. Like, you got to bring in a new coach. There's no choice. You have no choice. Mike Yeo can't be the coach of this team, even though he's a smart dude. We all like him. It can't happen. Can't happen. The waves are not going.
Anything that tied to the previous regime has to be gone.
It has to be gone. He can be here as an assistant. I think people would be open to that, but I don't think people would be open to the fact that he'd be here as a head coach. I think a lot of people
lose their minds.
Yeah, I think they'd be open to it, and I think honestly, if whatever he was coaching struggled, I think they would turn on him quickly over time. I think new coach, like everything we're saying, new coach, that draft pick, maybe you can pull off a big trade. Maybe you can do something good. You have too many wingers. Maybe you consolidate. Maybe Chuck Fletcher figures out something good. I wouldn't be, like I said, I think we both agree we're more patient.
Yeah.
But man, Chuck Fletcher, you got to turn this team around. Otherwise, you're not going to last here, dude.
No, it's going to be Danny Grier's team soon.
And that's the thing. Like, if notice how the tone changes immediately. Like, if we found out tomorrow or at the end of the season, Chuck Fletcher's been fired and Daniel Briere is now GM, everybody would be like,
it's it's like a rebirth of the Flyers almost.
So that is in the trigger, that is in the toolbox of Comcast.
Yeah.
I don't think we're at that point. We both agreed.
But I don't think they're going to wait too long to, put that tool to use. If you know what I mean.
They have one off season right now.
Yeah.
Again, this is perpetually getting worse. Like, we're becoming a joke around. We are the Buffalo Sabres now.
Yeah. We're becoming a laughingstock around the league.
We are now. And we have our own Eichel situation with Ryan Ellis.
When were the Flyers ever a laughingstock from all your years of watching?
Never.
That's the concerning part.
Yes.
That's the concerning part.
The 1 year where they were at the bottom of the league, people were like, oh, well, they lost Forsberg all year. They weren't supposed to be this bad. Then Paul Holmgren, who people talk a lot of shit on But you look at it retrospectively, he's the best GM we had pretty much
in
for
20 years.
Aggressive as shit. Turned the team around within a year. Did stuff that was good. He had some bad moves, but he did some really good stuff. He drafted some of our better players. Got us to the Stanley Cup final. I would be happy to take that over.
Oh, yeah. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's very hard for a team to turn it around after two of the worst years in franchise history in one single offseason. So Fletcher has his work cut out
and
for
a combination of COVID and injuries to help slow you down.
Yeah. He's got his work cut out for him. He's going to have to be creative and make something happen if he wants to keep his job longer than, past next season. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well said. All right. Give us some hope, Chuck Fletcher.
Let's see what we can do this offseason. Hopefully that adds to it.
All right. Thank you again, Steve Steaks. Thank you. Go get cheesesteak.
Jim Steaks.
Oh my God, I did it again.
That's okay. No,
I
don't
hate
go to
Steve
Steve's.
Steaks.
It's the worst.
I hate Steve Steaks. They're the worst. Jim Steaks is where it's at. This is only like the 15th to 20th time I've screwed up this.
I think it's just we go super long and then we're trying to end off. That's okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. Love you all. Please share, like, subscribe, comment, do the whole thing. We definitely are trying to read it. And like we said, we're going to do more stuff in the off season and all that stuff, blah, 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 as we move forward. But for now, let's just get through this painful season. And already reached out to Steve Cornianos about the draft. So
awesome.
Looks like I asked him. I assume he's going to say yes, but asked to do a pre and post episode with him for the draft. So we'll get pre stuff, and then after whoever the Flyers draft, we'll go and review that. So it'll be stuff.
I'm excited. That's going to be great for our listeners too. They're going to love it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
He knows his shit.
Yes, he does. All right. Thank you, Vasili. Enjoy the hockey, everybody. And remember, stay gritty.